Photogenic. Chapter 1. I'm Ryan Dilby ShoreCroft, a London editor for the news agency The London Focus. We just started our year in 1842 and already have encountered 8 strange murders greeting us into the new year. It started with discovering 3 bodies in November, 5 in December, and now a staggering 8 bodies in January. A rapid escalation that demanded the immediate attention of London's best investigators. Members of the public, to their fright, found the victims approximately 7 meters off the ground and halfway swallowed in by the brick sidewall of factory and commercial buildings specifically, always in a busy part of London. The police, fire brigade and doctors would do their best to rush to the site of the newly discovered victim, only to be met with yet another abhorrent, but by now expected sight of gruesome death. The first responders never had a chance. They were too late. The victims were found in a God-defying position and pronounced dead at the scene. They were inexplicably and incredibly difficult to retrieve. It is unbelievably strange. It is as if parts of the walls were meticulously disassembled, the bodies carefully placed in position, and the bricks reapplied so tightly as if it were indeed always so. Construction professionals would swear by their very experience and said the grout holding the bricks in place were at least a good 2 decades old. In other words, the grout and bricks were never moved from their positions. Grout can last as long as 50 years. The wall on each murder site seem undisturbed and show clear signs of natural decay, complete with moss growth and the graying of bricks as a result of the years of exposure to the cold and rainy weather common to London. Contrary to this, the bodies show all the signs of a very recent death, as if they were alive only hours ago. Thus, fresh victims and aged untouched walls pose a conundrum. Old bricks can be reused with new grout. Old grout cannot. It is, to say simply, of one-time use. Once grout has reached a particular threshold, when it, as the first layer, no longer can protect the mortar, the second layer, it is to be replaced entirely. Grout acts as the first layer of protection against the weather. It shields mortar from the elements. Mortar is used in between bricks, holding them up, creating a wall. Old grout is chiseled out in sections and is replaced. Scaffolding is erected for workers to access and achieve the task, a process known as brick pointing. But scaffolding was not a sight that the good people of London saw at the scenes. No. There was none ever reported during the time of the unsightly discoveries. What instead caught the very attention of the public and made them look up as they walked below were not only the loose bricks found splayed on the ground. That in itself was not unusual for London. Old buildings lose a few bricks over time due to a lack of maintenance, but their attention was primed by the unusual amount of deep red, fresh and viscous blood that pooled on the ground and led all the way up the brick wall of these buildings. A body was found at each scene, placed around 7 meters up. They laid vertically upright and were found tightly positioned into the walls. The arms of the victims were placed horizontal to their shoulders, mimicking the appearance of a crucifixion. The circumstances surrounding these murders are peculiar to say the least. Investigators can't come to an understanding as to how the unusual physics behind these murders actually worked. There were never any witnesses, and the dirty deed was always carried out at night. Family and friends of the victims swear they spoke to them only minutes ago or fell soundly asleep in bed together. After the cold night gave way to the morning, the murder victims were discovered by members of the public, crucified and hugged tight in bricks, closely followed by the harrowing screams that accompanied the deadly find found at dawn. Each victim encountered was found with numbers cut into their foreheads, which seemed to follow the numerical sequence of murders thus far. We are looking at victim 16, and here we are now. Like the previous victims, the 16th also is positioned in the wall as if nailed on a cross, legs tightly packed together and straight down, the arms stretched horizontally to the shoulders, and the eyes were missing. This pattern remains in line with the modus operandi, including the replacement of the eyes with large scorpion tails dangling out on her face, a species not native to England at all. They seem to somehow have been anchored into her eye sockets. The investigators are amiss in how they are to stack up the facts. Multiple strange question branches arise the deeper the investigators pursue the leads. Unfortunately so far, dead ends were the fruits of their labor. With leads that don't connect and the purpose unfound, the confidence the public has in the police is in question. Fear is the sour gas that grows in the guts of the people. What could have brought this wrath onto London? Are these murders the result of cult activities? Is this revenge or retribution? Has London fallen out of grace with the god of prosperity, a sign for the worse perhaps? To find the clues that will shine a light in the direction of answers is an attempt at lighting the paths of misty obscurities. The facts border on the feats of devils. The city has been looking to the authorities for answers, and the best they could present to the public was that this is the work of a syndicate of vigilantes, whose members are matriculated into a secret process. They are fast and well-resourced. Rest assured, we will apprehend whoever's behind this. The sooner the authorities can find their motives, the faster they can place the pieces rightly together, facing the way of truth. The police appeal to the public to inform them of strange group meetings, smells, and drawings that could possibly further the progress of their investigations. My agency, the London Focus, had acquired a new device that was amazingly capable of capturing images in still form, as we see them. It is capable of locking a moment in present time and transferring it onto paper. Said paper receiving this visual detail is a specialized kind that is called a calotype negative. A chemical coating is applied on a small piece of this paper called photo, a shorthand for photographic image that allows the image captured by the device to develop and set in minutes at hand. These images, unlike a commissioned painting, are not an artist's rendition of the moment, but are the actual and unadulterated capture of the likeness of an image ahead of the device, without fluff. As long as the object that is to be captured remains still and the sun does not directly stare into the device, the image's capture will be successful. Hence, great care is taken into account when planning the positions and angles with respect to the sun, that it will not pose a direct challenge towards a device, in which the device would lose and make the image capture an unsuccessful attempt. We wisely have come to an exclusive arrangement with the authorities. We can provide permanent and accurate images of the crime scenes, allowing the investigators access to accurate points of references to examine, with the understanding that our agency has the exclusive and first access to these sites, and are told of any advancements in the cases a full day ahead of competition. So here I am, Ryan D. ShoreCroft, with an incredibly expensive device in my hand, a victim half bricked into a wall, and circumstances that border on the supernatural. We place some gas lamps around the victim to allow plenty lighting for the images to be accurately taken. which also lends quite a very eerie ambiance to the still pictures themselves. The evening sets so early in January. I stand straight on an elevated platform, matching the height of the victim, to work on further angles and feed as much detail to the photographic device as possible. The deceased woman appears to be English and in her late 20s. Her height at the current estimation is about 5.2 feet. She has brown, shoulder-long hair and a gold ring on her ring finger. The victim is barefoot and found dressed in a white nightgown, which according to the circumstances pattern, are now ripped and bloodied. The partially dried out stains follow a downward flowing stream of red, originating from her eyes, cut open throat, and a split open abdomen, relieving her of her innards. I recognize some brain matter stuck to her gown. Strange. Did they try to yank her brain out of her nose, which appears beaten off? We can't tell if this was done to her while she was alive or post, but the smell her cold body emits delivers punches to the gut, as a putrid wave of excrement, urine, and build-up bodily gases escape a now pale and disrespected body. The investigators and officers presumably were as shocked as I am now when they discovered their first victim. I can't shake this uneasy feeling that the air I'm breathing in still carries intent. I've noticed on occasions the very particular feeling that I'm being observed while I focused on peering through the device's lens. It's strange. It is as if someone I couldn't see stood right next to me, observing in glee as I photographically capture their own handiwork. These images will help the investigators in the methodology and modus operandi, the patterns behind these murders that will identify the thinking and habits of these dark operators. I've taken many useful angles of the victim through the objective eye of the photographic device, and am now capturing the ground beneath her. It is no pretty sight in the slightest. I am standing in a tight alley, the side of a factory office building. Blood has formed a dense pool on the ground. Her guts lay there, severed, and the other end still hangs to her, distastefully. The amount of blood present is highly unusual. The human confine has around 5 liters of blood, give or take, depending on the size of the person. The ground is not even, and a rather deep pool has been allowed to form. Loose bricks are randomly laying around the site, mostly close in the proximity to the 16th victim. The factory bin containers are positioned at the bricked up dead end of the alley. Some of the large containers have no lids. What lays underneath and in those containers, and also those on the very neighboring streets, could hold clues to this crime scene. The investigators agree and send policemen to check the bin containers around the area. The body's position on the wall is closer to the corner of the building, and thus closer to the main road, in clear view to the members of the public passing by. The building itself is 6 stories high, not including the flat roof. In line with protocol, access to the factory office and roof to enable the investigation has been arranged. I reach the back wall from inside the office, from where we can access the back of the victim. It is another strange sight unleashed on us. There are no loosened bricks on this side. We are in the midst of a long, stretching office environment, mundane and usual as any other in its essence. Then there's the victim, locked in position between 2 floors. From her shoulders up, she appears past the floorboards, still perfectly bricked in, with not a penny coin's worth of a gap between her and the bricks and mortar. On the floor below, her back legs are visible from the thighs down, and the blood splatter roughly mirrors the pattern of the scene found outside. A smaller pool of blood has collected on the wood floor of the office and leads up the wall towards the victim. This string of cases hold an abnormal truth. There is a silent and inconspicuous way the bricks and mortar were removed and returned into position that did not betray the untouched present presentation. These scenes alerted no one on the ground as they happened and always occurred in the depths of night. Why were these people so maliciously targeted? From the 16 victims, 3 were male. One of those was an 8-year-old boy, brought to an end in line with the method thus far. The females were always married, apart from 2 who were in their mid-teens, 14 and 16, and were considered virgins as attested by their parents. The victims were not involved in politics, and neither did they directly donate to any parties. By all accounts, they were upstanding citizens, not involved in the illegal dealings of dark business. From the investigators' standpoint, there is no clear motive that connects the victims into becoming targets. Why were they dispatched into this nominated show of horror? What connects these victims together that made them worthy of this carnage? Who would go through all the trouble to achieve this detailed and time-consuming work? And to what end? Are these vigilantes a cult, a purely sadistic group? The investigators, no doubt, will find the family and husband and gather more details as required. The workers in the office describe no scaffolding work on the walls, commissioned or otherwise. And yet here we are, a grotesque scene in the heart of London, performed at night and completed in its gory glory by the release of dawn. At the end of my work, I captured 86 images through the photographic apparatus taken over 3.5 hours. These will be the very first and best actual representation of a live crime scene, thanks to this marvelous device that will be shown in our newspaper for all of Great Britain to see, and in this, the world. Our newspaper, the London Focus, has the most experienced experts in etching. Not only will we be able to represent the images on our newspapers, no, but also enlarge them. The world is about to change and bring even more prosperity to our great nation, our agency, and our British technology. God hail our glorious Queen, and me, Ryan D. ShoreCroft. The authorities grant the contractors and medical professionals the release of the victim from a cold and respectless display, ending this callous show of evil, this brick-hardened vice of a war, a wickedness that burdens the eyes of all those decent and true below. My work here is done. I made duplicates of every picture taken, and the pleasant quid pro quo bargain struck between the investigators and our agency remains respected. 43 pictures are ready for the authorities and 43 for our agency. I climb into my carriage, careful not to let my tiredness make me miss a step going up, as my driver secures my luggage on the roof, and on my signal, we are off. As we measuredly ride along, my eyes drift across the hard-working people of this city. Oh, the days coming. The days coming will bring a new charge into the spirit of London. The nationwide headline will read, "The hell-sent brick mortarer of London encases its 16th victim. Exclusive view pictures of the crime scene through new British technology." Moonlight Shack. 3 days have passed since the first photographic newspaper issue. For the first time ever, the citizens of Great Britain had the opportunity to behold the actual images detailing the grisly scenes they all had heard about, but never laid eyes upon. The work of the infamous hell-sent brick mortarer of London. Our estimable agency the London Focus, supplied these newspapers at every central train station, every overpopulated popular public house, pub, and every populated lunch cafe and shopping centre popping with the crowds that are the people of London. We arranged a special edition which was sent out to the major cities of England via the reliable steam train network, and thereon they were distributed at key locations over the following days also. 2 days later, an influx of advertisers were bidding fanatically to secure their space on the first 3 pages of our next issue, and the issues thereafter, as our sales numbers presented an undoubtable rise. Readers are agitating towards our newspapers to absorb any and every further development in the cases, if not only for macabre new case photo entirely. The number of pages on our newspapers have increased by a staggering 33% and are filled with the thoughts and opinions of our editors and of course our advertisers. A small picture of myself as the breaking news reporter and editor has generously been added in the 3rd page, from where the main story on the front page headline continues. The relevant points of contact were added to help the authorities leading the investigation to solve the streak of unsolved murders that has beset our shining beacon of light, that is, London, the economic centre of the world. God save the Queen. We also encouraged our readers to write in with checks for the chance to have their theories hand-picked by our editors and have them added on to our next issues. The relevant bank details were supplied with the newspaper. The generous checks sent to us will greatly help towards the development of a bounty for anyone who can bring us information that will lead to the capture of this hell-descended assassin who enters the hearts of our citizens, ushering the slow declivity into the familiar, cold old dread. Already, the streets are practically empty an hour before the sun has set. Those who can't make haste hushfully traverse the roads and alleyways to set home on the quickest path. Word travels fast, and ideas make mast. We are feverishly anticipating any raindrop of information that could lead us quietly into the circle of these wolves behind this red curtain show, that the authorities may sneak in like the silent march of ants that form a line to and from nest to dinner and to prison where they belong. 3 days of action have transpired, and here I am in my bedroom as I ponder my thoughts and hastily write them down into my journal. The sincere beckoning of Et Blonde waits me in bed. As patient as she is, I must tease her no longer. The anticipation has birthed its purpose, and her precipitated cries for my embrace are at the peak of persuasion. My ears no longer want to block the resonance of her sweet, melodic, wanting young voice. Little clothed for bed, I've set my journal aside on the table and blow off the thick lemon and elderflower infused artesian candle and leap ahead to bed. The moon finds its throne high in the cloudless, dark, bluish tinted night sky, shifting the shadows cast through the window curtain to walk across the harshly vibrating floorboards as a game played by 2 has spilled from the soft pillow-filled, silken-sheeted bed onto the hard wooden floor, like stubborn rubber cables that have twisted tightly together, wriggled and bound. The 2 create shadows over the floorboards that resemble fabled multi-limbed Indian deities, busy melting into each other in wood-splitting bounces that seem to never lose their momentum, efficiency at its maximum. The path of the moon travels its course and is mirrored by the shadows cast on the bedroom floor, shifting them towards the other end of the room. There it is, the bright, recurring beauty, the silver orb of the night noon. The house cat, a toiga striped orange and black in the wavy patterns of a tiger, wanders the corridors hoping to prance on an unsuspecting mouse that will eventually pass the door of its master. The tiger stops there. It tastes the air for his scent. It smells a coarse version of spilled milk and makes a face. That is, if she could make a face. She shifts into an aggressive stance as she senses another feline was here with her master, although this other cat has already eloped into the night not long ago. Good choice. She knows what's good for her. A cold, floor-sweeping draft escapes the gap from under the door and the mouse shoots out in a hurried fashion. Unbecoming for an already waiting cat, she pays the mouse no attention as her ears prime forward and the eyes stay fixated at its master's door. All four knees of the tiger bow in a blink and its stomach pulls in 3 rapid motions. Her next action appears in the unusual slight collision with the wooden staircase rungs as she disappears past them down the stairs. A wicked presence takes over the space in Ryan ShoreCroft's room. The will of harm pressurizes the particulates in the air, folding them to its will. And with that, the oxygen around the sleeping lion Ryan escapes. Sounds of licking and a loud smacking of his lips are followed by the slight coughing and worming of his body rubbing against his bedsheets, as Ryan subconsciously realizes in his slumber that he is gradually but surely becoming more and more uncomfortable, ranging up to a direct threat to his life. He must wake up. Ryan's eyes shoot open, and he pops up erect from his reclined position, now violently coughing as he is trying to come to grips with the situation that oxygen no longer is finding its way into his lungs. And for all the turning and twisting, he can't see the immediate reason for why. Abruptly, his body halts its motions as he stares down a long dark chasm stretched ahead of him from the foot of his bed. He's staring into a nightmare. His face begins to redden as the pressure in his veins increases from the struggle to circulate the red liquid of life back to his heart. The oxygen count in his blood has steadily decreased, flattening his blood oxygen levels in response. His heart fiercely tries to hurl the normally oxygen-rich blood back into the pipes, but its bucket is at least a third empty at each try and further disappearing as Ryan uselessly gasps for the now non-existent oxygen in the air. His bloodshot eyes stare ahead into the living example of the dark macabre arts. The chasm ahead of him is covered in black stones, which appear dimly lit by a green hue, emitting seemingly from no particular light source. And now comes the sight that would have carried his breath away if it already wasn't so. Ryan feels as if he was entered into an oil painting that has been spun into motion, and which vividly has its painted parts rhythmically pump into action like the up and down moving pistons of factory machines, casting a portrait of life before him truer than ever. Life has become a dead image, and a dead image has become more than reality itself. In the gory glory of the dark arts are before him all 16 victims of the hell-sent brick mortar of London, dead. They lay upright against the brick walls, the very same they each were found in, inanimate and facing each other from the opposing sides of the stretching dark corridor. At the end of it, Ryan sees a door seemingly built from some form of thick but transparent solid crystal, and behind it flows a dark blue and purple body of clouds. Every now and then, gaps appear for a brief moment, revealing something in the depth of the swirl. A screech fills the air, a sound that resembles a heavy rod whirling through a heap of shattered glass, combined with the sound of badly maintained, dry locomotive brake plates furiously engaging into a simultaneous halt. A crackling spark of light appears midway up of the crystalline door. The light etches in a number onto it, painfully slow to Ryan's dismay, still out of breath. 17. The number 17. It is inscribed into the color of an intensely bright hot, glowing orange and quickly settles into a two-tone crimson and copper orange detail. Then finally it turns fully crimson and bleeds down onto the crystalline door. Ryan, starved of oxygen, passes out.